Does Vaush really believe in the nonsense you could have markets without commodities? What are you on about? Why are you talking as though I'm not here? What are you hello? I'm trapped in the damn fucking conversation cube, okay? I can feel the walls, but I can't see them. What are we doing? But the thing is, this still maintains capitalism in place. It literally do you think it's capitalism that you have to pay for a stamp at USPS? The state still has an incentive to reduce services to reduce costs. But in practice, that's just not really how it works. Like the government agencies aren't necessarily subject to the same cost pressures. But also, that's not capitalism. Capitalism isn't the system where you try to reduce costs. That's every system. Like, there will never be a version of an economy where people are like, we should just spend an amount of money or time or effort on a thing with no consideration for reducing the cost at the input. Like, communists would do the same thing. They would also, like, oh, we have, like, the centrally controlled factory. This is the factory that makes the boots. Is there a way we can cut down on the amount of leather that's put into each boot so we can produce more boot, or, like, produce the same amount of boots for cheaper? That's always the case. You should tip the landlord, yeah, especially if the landlord's the government. What are we talking about? I don't know. We're warming up, you know. We're warming up. Capitalism is a system in which the primary creation of wealth is represented through the exchange of goods and services for a price. No, it's not. Capitalism is the system with the private control of the means of production, which would definitionally not be the case if the government is the one managing the housing. Like, what you're describing is a market, but a market has existed well before capitalism and does after. And I mean, I'm also, like, very much generalizing with my definition of capitalism, but, like, what you're describing is a component of every economy, not just capitalism. So the USSR wasn't capitalist? What? The USSR was, well, the USSR was state capitalism. I don't understand what we're arguing about right now. If the decommodification of housing would definitionally not be, like, a capitalistic development. So you want state capitalism? No. What are we talking about? State capitalism is not private ownership. Well, the problem with the USSR is that functionally they just replaced the bourgeoisie with the inner circle of the Communist Party. Like, rather than a person's ownership of property determining their role in the labor hierarchy, it was political proximity to the center of control that did that. So the heads of the party didn't technically own the factories, but they politically controlled them, had control over their production output, distribution, and employment, right? Which means that they functionally controlled them even if they didn't own them. So you basically replicate an incentive structure similar to that of capitalism, but you do so without the technical ownership, which means it is different from, traditional laissez-faire capitalism. But in my opinion, you're still maintaining the same basic distinction between in the labor hierarchy, Decommodification, which you rent to the state, which still maintains housing as a commodity to be bought and sold. Housing is not a commodity if the government provides it at, like, a stable, regulated rate. That doesn't, it's not a commodity then. What if the family has, like, 9 kids and needs a large house? Would they pay the government the same as someone with a smaller house? Probably not. Fuck ass, having 9 kids. Yeah, it is, because it's a service to be bought and sold. Dog, capitalism is not when currency is exchanged. Every economy ever has had currency that's exchanged. If we had universal healthcare, but you paid a pittance every time you went there as a kind of disincentive to overuse the system, that would not make the healthcare that you're getting like a market commodity, because the amount that you're paying isn't necessarily a reflection of a supply and demand price curve. Like, what we're talking about here isn't housing decommodification, where the government is, like, trying to maximize the rent on every property that it has or whatever. It just means there's an amount that you pay as, like, a baseline for getting in. But that doesn't mean that it's being susceptible to market pressures, and it certainly doesn't mean that it's being like treated as a private speculative asset. The incentive structure here is completely different. There are tons and tons of government-run services that just run at a flat rate and aren't really subject to market pressures. The USPS, basically everything that goes through the military, like military cafeterias, military grocery stores. There are tons of services, stuff the VA does. Yes, it is. Have you read Capital? Okay, you're really pulling this card on me? I've read Capital 50 times. I wrote Capital. Come on. What are we talking about here? Also, why wouldn't the government make the rent higher? It needs profit. You sound to me like you have limited experience with the real world. Even today, right now, in America, which is a very capitalist and very evil country, there are tons and tons of government services that have a specific rate for which they operate if you engage with them, which does not mean that they are subject to like price maximization. What you're describing is just wrong. You're assuming that the government, if it charges anything for anything, would operate in exactly the same way as a private market trying to maximize profit. And that is just incorrect. It's factually incorrect. It doesn't, we don't need to argue theory. The real world disagrees with what you're saying here. Listen, to be clear, okay, even though I think you're being a smarmy little shit, I think that the motivating force behind your disagreement is well intentioned, and I think that you're engaging in good faith. So there's not an issue there, but it's a very complicated subject, and I disagree that you're maintaining the underlying incentive structure of capitalism if you decommodify something but still have some kind of price gate for entry. I just don't think that's true. But you know what? It's how about we talk about it more later? Can we do that? I didn't really expect to get caught on this for 36 minutes at the beginning of stream, but you know, I acknowledge it's an extremely complicated subject, and I'm happy to talk about it more later, you know? Commodity production implies markets. I think it's listen, I don't really believe in a moneyless society because I think you do need a currency to ease the friction in the exchange of goods and services that are not strictly deregulated by the government. Like things are not naturally decommodified. In order for something to be decommodified, it has to be provided by the state or by some entity that can provide it. Like naturally, if there is a thing people want and there is a scarcity to it, people will compete over it and there will be a price to it, if you imagine, right? The government has to specifically provide things for them to be decommodified. And you get that by pooling your resources, you know. But I don't think that the government can ever decommodify everything. Sure, housing, healthcare, food, great. But can the government decommodify everything? What about carpets and rugs? What about tools? What about, God, I don't know, clothing, everything, like just everything in the world, right? Probably not. The government can't provide everything, you know? Nor could it provide fairly, I think, a stipend that would allow you to retrieve everything for free. I think that the most we can hope for, and I'm imagining in my head right now, I'm imagining a lovely world. I'm not in any way suggesting that the world I'm describing is bad. Labor vouchers, dog. Labor vouchers are a kind of currency. Labor vouchers instead of currency. Wake the fuck up. Dude, I don't believe in prisons. I believe in anarcho police that enforce the anarcho laws so that if you break them, you go to a narco prison and an anarcho executioner, anarcho kills your ass. Like, no. Labor vouchers are a kind of non-capital reinvestment accruing currency. I'm not arguing this, okay? The point that I'm making is that the decommodification applies to specific things that everyone needs, and then you have your commodity markets for fun stuff like, I don't know, cock rings and novelty fucking Japanese letter openers, okay? Whatever you prefer, all right? Thought you were going to talk about it more later. You're right. And there will always be people trying to fleece you in the open market, okay? That's just part of life. Fuck, that's good. Okay. Housing ramble. Good opener. Is that mug 3D printed? No.